Texas, Florida, Indiana, Arizona State, Tennessee is your top 5 for men's NCAA championships, 6 through 10. NC State, Cal, Michigan, Virginia, and Stanford. Let's just get right into it. Texas wins their second NCAA championship in a row. It's Bob Bowman's third as a head coach in a row. He was at ASU and won in 2024. Now in 2025 and 2026, he's gone back-to-back with Texas. Let's give Texas their flowers now. There are things I want to talk about in a little bit of concern with Texas. Not anything too crazy, but they won this meet handily once again. They were just simply the best team. They were competitive in just about every event. They were really competitive in the breaststrokes, which is not typical. Texas has always been a 200 fly team, and that actually wasn't really one of their strengths last week, excuse me. But the 200 breaststroke, they had an amazing event as a team. Despite what Rowdy Gaines said over the air, they do have star power. Hubert Koch, one of the best swimmers in the NCAA this year, joined an exclusive club, being able to go 42 in both the 100 fly and the 100 back. And when I mean exclusive, I mean he's the only one that has ever done that. So extremely exclusive club there. This is the 17th national championship in program history for the Longhorns. They were on a little bit of a drought after Eddie Reese left, but Bob Bowman has gotten them right back on track. There's no reason to expect that Bowman is going to go anywhere. This is going to be a dynasty that's going to live for a long time. They're going to win lots of championships. They're just a very well-run program. They're run on a standard. They don't really listen to outside noise, which is kind of the best way to run a program. If you're going to run a program in the NCAA, this isn't just swimming. This goes for football. This goes for basketball. When you see the programs that run off of outside noise, and this is what people are saying about you, and that's why you should be going fast, that's why you should be playing hard, that's why you should be doing this, it tends to generate a lot of success at the beginning of a rebuild, but it doesn't give you the sustained success that Nick Saban had at Alabama, that Coach K had at Duke, that, say, even Kirby Smart at Georgia, or what we suspect Curt Cignetti at Indiana is going to do. That's because those guys don't run on things like that. They don't even show you the press. They don't even care what people are saying about their program. The way they run their program is, this is the standard, and this is why you do this, you execute this way, because this is Alabama football, this is Duke basketball, this is Texas swimming and diving. The programs that run off of this is the standard, and this is how we execute everything, because that's just who we are, and that's what we've decided for our program, that's your sustained success programs. I see Texas as being one of those. I see Bowman, anytime I listen to him talk, he seems to be a coach that runs that way, and I think that that's a much better plan for sustained success. That's why I think that this is just going to kind of be what we see out of Texas. They're going to be competing, if not winning, for championships for years to come. With that being said, is it crazy to say that they might have looked just a little bit vulnerable this week? Just a slight chance of vulnerability, in the sense that they're not Virginia women, that they just can't be beaten. I don't see Virginia women being beaten realistically anytime soon. I certainly don't see them not being a favorite going into an NCAA meet for a long time. I don't see that being the case with this Texas team. It was honestly not a huge performance for their freshman class. The freshmen were outscored by Virginia, Florida, Indiana, Tennessee, Cal, Michigan, and Miami. Granted, Miami was only through their divers. Their sophomore class was outscored by Indiana, Tennessee, Cal, and Pitt. So the underclassmen haven't necessarily brought it as hard as the juniors and the seniors. Granted, Bob Bowman is a developmental coach. He's known for bringing up athletes. He's even said that he doesn't really love these new NCAA roster limitations because they don't allow him to get the diamonds in the rough that he loves to develop. We'll see if that kind of hinders him, if he has to kind of adjust to that new recruiting style, to being able to find talent, but also talent that can be developed, because he's not able to find these diamonds in the rough, as he calls them, and develop them into the champions that he was able to, or that he is able to. But I don't think they're going to win every NCAA title for the next 4 years and be like a Virginia 6-peat kind of thing. I think that there are plenty of schools that can contend and can fight for this championship with them. Second in this meet was Florida. Josh Leendo had an amazing meet. just like we said he would on this show. I even said the 100 fly looked vulnerable. I did not think he was going to go 42.4, but I will take the win, and I will say that I called it. He also went 39 once again in the 100 freestyle. He won the 50 free, won all of his individual events for his 7th, 8th, and 9th individual NCAA titles, matching the great Caleb Dressel, another Florida alumni. He had just an amazing meet. He was one of those swimmers that you see every once in a while where he was just in a zone that week where every time he entered into a heat, you kind of just knew he was going to win. I mean, I had that feeling the whole week watching him. It was every time I saw him step up, I just knew he was going to win whenever he was swimming. You just have that feeling. Ahmed Jawadi was another huge star for Florida. He went the NCAA record in the mile, 14:10. His race with Sarkany. I'm a 50 freestyler at heart. I love the sprints. I think the men's mile might have been the most entertaining race of this NCAA season, and I don't know if it's really all that close. They were neck and neck with each other the entire race, going back and forth. Jawadi did a little Bobby Fink and pulled away at the last 50, broke the NCAA record. It was so much fun to watch. He had a great meet all around, had a good 500 as well. Florida had some huge diving points. They scored 58 off of their divers. That helped them keep their distance on Indiana, who was kind of closing in at times, and they were really competing for that second spot. Now, looking ahead for Florida to the transfer portal, Luka Mladenovic from Michigan was an A finalist in both the breaststroke events. He is now in the transfer portal. If I were Florida, I would push hard for Luka Mladenovic. I think that he is someone who could complement their roster super well. I know they're going to spend some time trying to find anyone to fill the shoes of Josh Liendo, and I mean, they're not going to find another Josh Liendo for next year. But I would push hard for this breaststroke hole because you could see it on their medley relays. You could see it individually. That is a huge hole in their roster at the moment. And getting someone like that, I would be surprised if they weren't making a huge push for them. Another team I thought was really interesting was ASU at 4th. Their relays, my goodness, were unbelievable. Rowdy Gaines called it an upset when they won the 2 medley relay. I don't really see that, but they won every single relay except for the 800, and in the 800 they got 8th, which you'll obviously take. 4 out of 5 wins in the relays is ridiculous. 182 points total, 20 more points than the next best team, which, as you could guess, was Texas. ASU had another amazing meet. They're proving that they're still a great team despite Bob Bowman's exiting to Texas. But I think the future of ASU is really going to lean on these next 2 years and how they can really start to prove themselves with Bob Bowman's athletes starting to leave. They have 61 returning individual points next year, and they're losing 3 out of 4 members on almost all of their relays. All of their NCAA championship relays are losing 3 out of 4 members. So I think it's going to be a really big deal to see who ASU brings in and what they do with that in the future. Now, looking at the top 10, if you look outside of who won the meet, who was top 3, I think the biggest storyline of this meet was the Virginia men and them being able to surge themselves into the top 10. They had easily the best freshman performance in the NCAA. Maximus Williamson was tied for 8th in the 200 freestyle with 2 Virginia swimmers. Virginia obviously ended up putting Williamson in because his best time was capable of winning, and he did just that out of lane 8, won the 200 freestyle. He also won the 200 IM. Heilman scored 32 points. David King scored 25 points. They got into the top 10 with the freshmen leading their team in scoring. They had the highest scoring freshman class in the NCAA, as I said. This is a team that can contend for a title if they continue to perform at this level and recruit at this level in the next few years. Virginia has always been a program on the men's side that has kind of lived in the shadow of the dominance of the women. And I'm not saying I expect them to get into that level of the women and become a powerhouse and win championship after championship. But I do think that the Virginia men can win a men's championship in the next 3 to 4 years when you look at how they're recruiting and how they're developing. I don't think that this is going to be a team that lives in the shadows anymore. I think the men are motivated by wanting to be just as good as the women and being pushed by the women. So I think that this is a team that can contend in the future. Not just for continually being top 10, but pushing into that top 5, potentially even winning the meet conversation. So men's NCAAs, super entertaining. I want to talk about something that I wasn't able to get to last week because we were too busy reviewing women's NCs and previewing men's NCs, and that is that the 50 free long course world record went down in China, in the China Swimming Open, but none other than Cam McEvoy, a 20.88, one of swimming's longest standing records, is broken. I can't help but smile as a 50 freestyler myself who loves the long course 50. This race was amazing. This was so cool to watch this record go down. I was not into swimming at the age of 6 really when Cesar Cielo set this record at 20.91. So this is the first time that I've really been in the sport watching this record go down. This is one of the few supersuited records left standing. Cesar Cielo set this in 2009 in a supersuit when him and Busquet were over at Auburn training, and now that record is no more, 20.88. Interesting thing about this clip, Cam McEvoy, obviously he has a very complete 50. There's not really a weakness. He had a great start, but it wasn't like a Caleb Dressel start where he was just so far ahead of everybody that the race was already over. I mean, he was ahead, but it was still a race. Those last 25 meters were unlike anything that I had really ever seen in a 50 freestyle. I mean, you want to talk about strength and feel of the water and efficiency. Cam McEvoy just manhandles the water the last 25 meters and pushes ahead of everybody to go 20.88. He said after the race that he was just looking to go under the 22-second barrier. He did that. He also went under the 21-second barrier and under the world record barrier. But those last 25 meters were unbelievable to watch. And you can't help but think about a couple things. The first thing being his training style and the discussion that is generated. And this is something that always comes up in swimming, especially with sprinters. You know, do you go sort of the Florida route with Caleb Dressel where they do less yards than maybe a miler and a 500 swimmer, but still a good amount of yardage, still 4, 5, 6 grand in a practice? Or you can go the other side of the spectrum. You can do the Michael Andrew, the Cam McEvoy of less than 2 grand, super hard in the weight room, you know, more athlete than swimmer almost to develop your 50 freestylers. I think when you get into this conversation, there's never any nuance. Everyone is always saying that it has to be this way and it has to be this way. Especially Dressel is a huge example of the success of maybe a higher yardage sprinter. Now Cam McEvoy is an example of the success of a lower yardage swimmer. And when people debate about these, they'll bring up these swimmers and they'll say, well, you can't really expect that Dressel was going to go any faster than 17.6, even if he was doing a lower yardage training plan. And I would say, yes, that's right. You're not going to put Dressel in USRPT training and expect him to go 17.3. I think 17.6 was pretty close to the edge of what Dressel was able to do. That being said, on the other side, you also can't say that Cam McEvoy doing Dressel's training was going to go 20.6 or 20.7 last week, because that would also be wrong. I think we're pretty close to seeing what Cam McEvoy is capable of in the 50 freestyle too. I think what is missing in these conversations is just what is best for each athlete. I don't think that Michael Andrew is necessarily wrong or right universally for USRPT. I think that for him as an athlete, it is the right thing for him to do to go as fast as possible. You take me, for example. I grew up on a USRPT, a very low yardage, high speed, high intensity training plan, and that was how I developed as a sprinter. And for me personally, it was good because I grew up as an athlete. I didn't grow up swimming super seriously until I was 14 years old. And so when I got into the water, the high yardage stuff was just tiring for me and it didn't help me develop my fast twitch muscles. And so when I went to college, I switched from a low yardage, super high intensity workout to higher yardages, and I didn't quite see the success my freshman year that I think I would have if I had continued my training plan from back home. My sophomore and junior years, I switched to another lower yardage plan when there was a coaching change at my program, and that was when I really started to see that success again, and I really felt like I was explosive in the water. That's my personal testimony. However, I know athletes on my teams in college, I know friends of mine in high school and college who you could have given them my plan and they wouldn't have been as successful as they were with their higher yardage stuff, even in the 50s and the hundreds. So I think that there's just a lot of nuance missing in these conversations. I think that you as a coach need to know your athlete and what's going to make them go faster, and you need to tailor that workout to them. The other thing that I couldn't help but think about, and it's kind of in the same vein, but I am really curious what Brett Hawk thought about this world record. Brett Hawk was someone who used to champion Cam McEvoy as the founder of Sprint Revolution, as the USRPT guy, as being as kind of brash and in your face as Brett Hawk is. He always championed Cam McEvoy as an example of, you don't need to be swimming all these yards. Look at Cam McEvoy. He's doing tons of pull-ups, tons of weight room stuff. He's barely even getting in the water, and he's the fastest swimmer in the world. Then Brett Hawk goes to the Enhanced Games. He starts promoting the Enhanced Games. James Magnuson breaks the world record in the 50 freestyle, with a 20.89, and Brett Hawk starts championing him and their training plan and how the Enhanced Games is the future. Cam McEvoy speaks out against the Enhanced Games and is vehemently anti-enhancements. He is a clean athlete. He continues training his way, and Brett Hawk slowly stops involving him in his conversations. He doesn't bring up Cam McEvoy anymore. And now Cam McEvoy breaks James Magnuson's record in the 50 freestyle and breaks the actual world record in the 50 freestyle, which puts Brett Hawk in a weird situation because the athlete that he used to use as his billboard is now kind of hurting his own brand, because the Enhanced Games no longer has a world record. They didn't have an actual world record before because they were on drugs, but now they definitely don't have a world record. And so we probably won't ever hear what he thinks about this. I imagine it's probably frustrating to him, but he's also probably kind of happy to be proven right, knowing him. But I think that that's really interesting and something that you just kind of can't ignore with a situation like that. So yeah, that was an amazing race. Always great to see a long course world record go down. Last topic for today. With the end of the NCAA season coming, we had a lot of great races. We had a lot of entertaining moments, and it kind of makes you think, like, how can we get more good races? How can we get more entertaining moments? So I was talking about this with a friend of mine, and we kind of talked about, well, what makes a good race in the sport of swimming? And I thought about that a lot before I came on here, and I've thought of 4 pillars that I think can be expanded to any athletic competition, but I've kind of tailored towards swimming here into what makes a good race. My 4 pillars are stakes, story, stars, and speed. I think stars and speed speak for themselves. You want someone who's well known, who's big in the swimming world. Speed, you want to see records go down. You want to see times that you only see every once in a while. Stakes, obviously, NCAA titles, Olympic gold medals, Olympic qualifications, those all qualify as high stakes. I also think rivalries are high stakes. I think that someone chasing some kind of record is high stakes. Think about Michael Phelps chasing his 8th gold medal at the Olympics. Rivalries, think of Lily King versus Yulia Yefimova, USA versus Australia. I think all of those can classify as high stakes too, because there's some bragging rights and there's some I want to be better than you attitude going on at those meets. Story, think of redemption. Michael Phelps coming off of the drama of the time between 2008 and 2012, coming out of retirement after the 2012 Olympics to perform at the 2016 Olympics. Think of comebacks. Think of the 4x100 freestyle relay in 2008. Jason Lezak coming back on Elaine Bernard, one of the probably the greatest swimming race of all time, to be honest. Think of retirement swims. Once again, Michael Phelps in 2016. Comebacks again, Anthony Irvin coming back in 2016 to win the 50 freestyle after his fallout after the 2000 gold medal. Underdogs, think of Joseph Schooling beating Michael Phelps in the Olympics. I think all of those classify as great stories. So those are your 4 pillars of what makes a good race. And the obvious follow-up question there is, how do we create more good races? Because I think that that's a huge talking point in the sport. How do we get more eyes on the sport? And if you get more good races, you get more eyes on the sport. So let's kind of go through each 4 of them and think about what we can do. Speed, I don't think has really been a problem. That has definitely not been the issue in the sport of swimming. I mean, you look at the NCAA, we've got records getting broken every single year. I don't think that there's really much we can do about speed. Stakes is kind of an issue because you can't create too many things that are high stake, or else none of them are high stakes. You know, there's 162 baseball games in a season. Naturally, you know, they're not all going to be high stakes. They're going to start to become low stakes. There's not very many memorable June MLB regular season games unless you are like a diehard baseball fan. So you can't exactly manufacture stakes. People will care or they won't. And so it's a little bit risky to try and really lean on creating high stakes moments. And swimming kind of has a good amount of high stakes moments. I think the way that we can really lean into these 4 pillars is going to be the story and the stars. And these kind of go hand in hand. But I think we as journalists, as those who cover the sport, can do a much better job talking to athletes, talking to coaches, talking to groups, and expressing the rivalries between stars, expressing the personalities, the people that are behind the times, the people that are behind the moments. More talk about big matchups, more talk about getting people excited for certain races, certain swimmers to go off against each other. I think we need more coverage, and we need more unique coverage and more creative coverage of the sport. And I think that those 2 pillars, the story and the stars, is where we as journalists, as those who cover the sport, can do a better job of raising those 2 pillars to make more good races, to make you guys more interested in good races. I think the stakes is where we're going to need some more help from USA Swimming and from the NCAA. The reason that dual meets are usually not successful is that sometimes they don't have any of these pillars. Dual meets don't have any incentive. There's no reason to watch dual meets. We haven't even talked about dual meets on this show because they're so boring and because they don't mean anything. Texas could have theoretically not won a single dual meet the entire season and still won the national title. So they don't have stakes. There's not really a story because these are all just kind of swimmers going these times to get an idea of where they're at in the season. There's not speed because they're not rested. And there are stars, but it's very rare that the stars go up against each other head to head. A lot of the time you see like Indiana going up against a school that's much, much slower than them, and the meet's never really all that competitive. You get a couple of good competitive dual meets, but even then you're only getting one of the 4 pillars. Occasionally you get a fast swim, but they're just not consistent enough, and they still don't have stakes or stories behind them. I think that the NCAA needs to do a better job of either promoting races within those dual meets, getting us excited about 2 swimmers going off against each other, or make these dual meets actually mean something so that I can get excited and I can come on this show and talk to you guys about what a dual meet win or a dual meet loss means for a particular program. I think that that's where we need more help from USA Swimming and from the NCAA. But other than that, we are out of the NCAA season, which means we're going to spend a lot more time talking about pro swimming, talking overall about the sport of swimming, maybe even diving into things like open water and more unique stuff. I have a lot more things that I want to get into, that I want to talk about, that I'm super excited to start on. So other than that, I will see you guys next week.